Beautiful. Okay, let's get rolling. Welcome everyone to the February 13th edition of Contributor Experience. My name is Elsie. I am one of the chairs. Is there anybody on the call that's new this morning that would like to introduce themselves? Nope. Okay. I would just like to remind everyone that we have a code of conduct. So please go check that out. The TLDR is just please be excellent to each other. Let's do our regular program office updates. Office hours. George, how are we looking for that?
I just need to announce it. I got to follow up with Bob on the new contributors. But everything looks fine there.
Okay. I don't see Paris on the call yet. So maybe we'll come back to hers. How about the community meeting? I saw that we have a host for this week. How are we looking for future weeks?
It is Paris this week, Jonas next week, and Chris Short the week after.
Paris asked me to take over hosting tomorrow instead of her.
Oh, okay, cool. All right.
So, me tomorrow.
All righty. Make sure, have you followed up with the SIGs? Okay, cool.
She's doing all the pre-work. I just have to show up and take all the credit.
Awesome. I'll be here as well.
All right.
I see that Paris is now on the call. So Paris, any updates from Meet Our Contributors?
Need more people.
Okay. And if people want to volunteer, just Slack you, email you, best
Yeah.
to set up.
Slack me, email me, send an owl, whatever.
Okay. And then the need to know email for chairs and technical leads. Do you need any help with that?
I just need more tips. So if people have anything that the chairs and the leads need to know this week, ping me.
Okay. And then how did the Contributor Summit meetings go?
Awesome. We have completed a first venue conversation with CNCF about Barcelona and Shanghai, and very high level about San Diego. We're all good on that front. They being CNCF event planners, are actually in Barcelona this week looking at the space. So next week we should have some photos and things like that. Jonas is going to start taking over the Monday meetings as he's going to be running Barcelona. Josh is going to be having his own meetings for Shanghai, and sounds like he has a crew there. And that's, I think, our latest update.
Okay.
Small addition, if I may. For the Contributor Summit for Barcelona, we're missing 2 leads. One for marketing and communications and one for swag. So if anyone's interested in that, please let me know, and we can walk through the duties of those roles.
Okay. George, did you want those?
Maybe I'll follow up with Jonas on that one.
Sounds great.
Jonas, and what's the best way to get a hold of you? Slack, email?
Slack, yes, Slack, at Jonas Rosland. So easy there.
Okay, cool. All right. Because we ran a little bit over last time, I want to jump straight into the Slack retro follow-up. So we have plenty of time today to continue to cover that. So I'm going to pass the time back over to Josh.
Wait, I have something on the agenda?
We were going to do a follow-up on the retro. Next steps, reopening up the submissions to join Slack.
Oh, right. Okay. Hold on, let me pull that up.
Okay.
Was that just a week ago? How long ago was it that we were doing that?
That was a week ago.
Time, okay.
Sure feels like a lifetime.
Yeah. I know.
Paris is probably like, that can't be long enough ago.
You have no idea, y'all. It's like the song that doesn't end.
Okay.
I can give a quick follow-up if you want. I mean, I don't know, Josh, do you have specific questions that you wanted to ask for a follow-up?
Not yet. I actually need to figure out where I was, or where we were. So,
I can do a little bit of a summary since I was typing last night.
mhm.
So signups remain offline. We are not yet accepting new signups into Slack. We are continuing to keep most webhooks and API integrations offline. I believe Git been re-enabled, but everything else is still off. And other than that, status is basically unchanged since last week. We've updated some of the user wording. The plan so far is still taking shape at this point. We don't yet have any confirmation from Slack that they are fixing the notification bug. And without that, we are extremely hesitant to reopen signups because that will allow any spammer that gets through whatever meager protections we can create to do bad things. So we're struggling to figure out how to deal with this without Slack's assistance. I think that's the most I can say.
Did you have anything to add, Paris, to that?
George has the hand up. George can go first.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, when people come into the Slack admins channel and we kind of know them already, could we just fix them? Like this Ada Maria guy from this morning, who left
Yes.
Google and he could. Okay, so like, if we know the person, we can just fix them.
Yes.
I don't have to. Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Is this a side conversation unrelated to the Slack incident?
No, I'm wondering about allowing people into the Slack.
Okay, that person just needs an email change. He doesn't need to be in the Slack. He's already in the Slack. He just needs an email correction change.
Oh, okay. But I can do that for him, though, right?
That's correct.
It's okay on it. Okay.
Well, I'm not. Are you an admin or an owner? You may need to be an owner to do that.
Not sure.
Please, you're welcome to try. I'm not sure that you are actually allowed to directly change people's email addresses at whatever permissions level.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll try it. If not, I'll let someone know on Slack.
Okay.
All right. Incident related stuff to plus on to Noah. It sounds like, I don't know if we have agreement or quorum yet. That's what I'm going to try to figure out today on us going to the end user community committee and having that community weigh in as to whether or not they should be starting to moderate Slack. I'm speaking from my standpoint right now. I know some other admins feel this way, but I'm not going to speak for them, so they can on this call. But I feel like this is officially out of scope for contributor experience. And I think that the end user community needs to step up here. I think that even if we have all 26,000 contributors that we've ever had in Kubernetes history on Slack, that's still only a third of the people on Slack. And we're contributor experience, we're not consumer experience. And I think that we don't have enough resources for that. I don't think we ever will. And so I think it's time for us to petition the end user community, the TOC, and pretty much anybody listen to tell folks to either step up or we should figure out a new solution.
New solution in terms of like not using Slack?
Yes.
Or new solution as in Slack administration?
Slack is in, maybe we shouldn't use Slack for the intended purpose as it is today.
Okay.
For the end user community. Like I think Paris, you're saying we support Contribex supports Slack for contributor related processes.
Correct.
So yeah, I mean that's one of the obvious solutions, which would be Slack is for, we restrict Slack to contributors, at least for anybody new signing on, and we funnel people to discuss, etc. If they're users. The drawback to that is that I haven't seen a lot of our contributor base active on Discuss.
Yeah, I've been trying to work on that, but it's like
it's a too many channels problem, right? Because we haven't actually been able to drop any of our channels, right?
Yeah.
The deal was that Discuss was going to replace Google Groups, only it hasn't. And it's not like people were that active on Google Groups for most SIGs anyway.
Right.
I don't think we need to figure out if we're going to deprecate Slack for non-contributor functions. Like, I agree we should reach out to the end user community, but I don't think we've done that yet. So let's see what they have to say. Like, I hope they are willing to step up and help us, and this will be great, and then everything will be fantastic.
Okay.
Love that optimism.
Did you like my head bang? I was just going crazy.
Now, when we say step up, that's basically, hey, we need people to apply for moderators, right?
Correct.
Okay, gotcha.
In
Like-
the short term.
Like
Yeah.
10 of them at least around the clock. Like,
I don't think we had 10 slot. Let me check how many slots we added.
yeah, no, I mean, I think we need. I think Noah drew up a chart last night in one of his docs, and I think it's like we need at least 3 per 8-hour shift around the clock. So I mean, we're talking about like a team of at least 20 people, and if our responsibility is only 1/3, then we need at least 10 plus consumers. I mean, I think we need somebody in Kubernetes users at all hours at least.
Yeah. Does Slack support the concept of channel admins like IRC does, where somebody could
No.
actually have?
No.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
It's one of these things that we could theoretically try to work out a solution by like building a Slack bot that gives people temperate
Right, because we have so many idle people who have been itching
Exactly.
for automation for us.
yeah, and not prioritizing that as a solution.
Yeah, exactly.
So okay, so extra moderators, and then if we actually had 10 extra moderators, we could also look at having human moderation for signups.
Probably not even then. It's still 100 a day, and I don't know what it would provide.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're just giving, like, at some point, we just have to give up the risk of that this is going to happen again. So I feel like that's where the risk assessment comes in of what are we doing with Slack as a platform, period. Because I don't think we're ever going to fully prevent what happened unless we know that Slack for sure fixed a vulnerability. So that's why I'm trying to weigh, I mean, in my head anyway, short and long-term plans.
I don't think I agree that signups are unmoderatable given enough people. Because the sign-up form is ours. So we can ask for whatever information we want if we were to create a new form.
We absolutely can, but what would you ask that is compatible with the current scope of this being an end-user community?
I mean, yeah, I feel like we're all paid a lot of money, and for us to sit here and spend our money on clicking buttons and approving people into a Slack channel, I feel like it isn't wise.
Yeah.
George.
So we're within Slackin, maybe we could add in some sort of blacklist. So most of the people that came on and had illicit messages that they sent out came from certain different. They signed up using certain mail servers, right, and certain domains. So we could blacklist those. That would get rid of some of it.
Without going into details, that has already been implemented.
Okay.
Not going into details because this is recorded and on the internet, not
Yeah.
because I don't like any of you.
I mean, the other possibility, if we were opening up registration for end users again, is to funnel them to a specific channel and not allow them to immediately join other channels. It would cut the amount of moderation that we have to do in the event of an attack, because, you know, a lot of what was going on Sunday night was the attackers signing up for multiple accounts. And if when they did that, there was both a delay, even if it was completely programmed delay, like not a human involved, but simply stuff didn't get approved immediately. So if there was both a delay and they were all funneled specifically into a new user channel, then that's the only channel that we would have to worry about protecting until we get them kicked off.
What's the, like, how would we deal with moving people from that channel into the rest of the community?
Well, if it was automated, it would have to be a time and activity based thing. So again, we're talking about programming automation.
But that also just doesn't seem compatible with the way that we currently use Slack. Like, that would, at that point, why not just send people to discuss where they have better modules?
Probably.
Pickle. Who's got the pickle?
Yep.
We're in
So
a pickle.
any other next steps? Because that's the whole dealing with the sign up, etc. thing.
George has his hand up.
So currently, I'm allowing for 13 new moderators. Do you want me to, on top of the ones we have now, do you want me to increase that number
Substantially.
Yeah, I think so.
My proposal, George, which you can see in the Slack admins channel, I'm calling for, I think, 63 total.
Dang. Okay. All right.
So I apologize that I can't raise my hand because I'm on mobile right now, but a thought. So we've been operating the Slack instance for a while now, and is this the first large scale? Like, am I forgetting about any other instance where we've had like a large scale issue like this? Are we potentially having a big reaction to a single incident? And maybe is there middle ground in there where we could still explore options like we should go to the end user community. We should get, assess whether this is like having end user discussions in our Slack. Is that something that there is appetite to maintain, and appetite that has backing to maintain? But as far as how much of a risk is it to reopen signups, see how things go, if we have another issue, like, then be able to take some of the more like drastic measures, like 63 moderators. That seems drastic to me.
I could be wrong, and other people feel free to correct me. But it was my takeaway from our discussion last week was that once this group finds you, they will continue to, they have a habit of coming back and doing it again and again and again once they find you. So they've found us. So history would indicate that they would probably do this again in the near future once they were able to.
And the thing is, it's not going to be only the 4chan folks. I'm an IRC channel admin for some IRC channels. And it's just a fact of life on IRC that periodically that you have certain bots. Like, for example, there's one that's nicknamed Islamabot that periodically shows up and it automatically signs up for all kinds of random accounts using a very large array of hijacked email servers, so we can't block it out, and posts random Quran verses. we have not been able to figure out even what the intent of this bot is. And it's cleverly enough programmed that we can never really get rid of it. And there isn't like, I mean, IRC moderation's been around for a long time. and they've had a lot of people, they have people who actually have access to the servers trying to do automation to keep these groups out. And ultimately, nothing is 100% successful because they just have a lot more free time than you do. So I would agree with Elsie that on not only the 4chan folks, but these attacks having gotten some publicity, we can actually probably look at a game step up of other spammer and vandal groups in the future.
So I agree with that. It is all completely true, but also the reality remains that of all of the Slacks that I'm on, the only group I have seen that has carried out this attack has been this one 4chan group that appears to use the same MO every single time. So that is also true. It is not something to rely on, but it has been the reality up until now. I have deployed the block list onto one of the other Slacks that I moderate. It has so far been effective, but past performance, future predictions, etc. But it's at least worked so far for the past week and a half.
Yeah, well, and like IRC, we have to make the decision of whether having it open is worth tolerating a certain amount of trouble, right? Because Freenode and OFTC have not locked down their servers and prevented new people from signing up. They've said, okay, well, having these periodic attacks and or, things like Islamabad is tolerable given keeping the platform open. So that's the sort of decision that we can make. And that's the argument for having lots of moderators, right? If we have a whole bunch of moderators, then we can keep it open, but when something happens, we can actually respond quickly.
Okay. Do you guys think that we've, in the last week, that we've been turning away signups? Like, the reason that we want to block bad actors in general is because we want to stop people from getting pissed off at the community and turning away from the community. But I would say the amount of people in that attack that got pissed off and actually did turn away from the community is probably a lot less than the amount of people we just didn't let sign on this past week. So I think the reaction to this is that we're scared to get people on the community, or we're scared to piss off our existing members in the community. But at the same time, I think we're just not letting them in, which is even we're not letting in a lot more people than we would be pissing off if they were getting spammed.
Members of our community getting harassed is a lot different than spam.
Yeah,
there's a whole other level, y'all, between, oh, this person just posted a pornographic image in a room full of 60,000 people, and someone posting 75 with 10 of their friends and then harassing people in direct messages. Yeah. That's harassment. That's not spam. Period.
To rephrase it, it's that is absolutely a problem, Vlad, but there's also an optics issue of we need to protect our user base from things like that, and if we fail to, it makes us look very, very bad.
And again, it's a matter of the reasonable experience with other social media that if there's not some kind of control of this, that it'll accelerate. So whether or not what we have now is more problematic than what we have elsewhere is different from, if we did nothing, right? Because that's the worst case scenario, right? We do nothing and 4chan takes over all of the channels on Slack.
Well, we can't
on private.
We kind of promised everyone a safe space, right?
Yeah. And it's not like we're not letting anybody reach us at all, right? We've got discuss, etc. The problem is just that discuss is currently underutilized.
But theoretically, if the same issues was to occur on discuss, then like, I mean, I get that we get more moderation tools and stuff like that, but at the same time, then we turn off discuss as well, or, you know.
Discuss has substantial tools to specifically address this because this is what they deal with every day. Like you can restrict new user posting abilities to certain places. You can restrict new users' ability to post links, to post media. Like there's a broad palette of tools.
Right. You can assign channel admins so that like we have a bunch of Chinese speakers who are moderating just the Chinese channel.
But as you just said, there's been so much work on the IRC side to go put in better, you know, to protect against some kind of bot, but people will still always get through. So somebody, you know, no matter what, someone's going to get through.
Yeah.
With all due respect to IRC, Discuss is significantly better than most IRC servers, including Freenode.
Just with like Discuss, it will rate limit people. Like if they try posting, you know, 3 times within a 10-minute period or something like that, or responding to like different posts within a 10-minute period, it will hide all their posts and wait for them to be approved. All this stuff is tunable and actually sort of adaptable based on sort of your user trust system.
Yeah.
That hierarchy of trust levels is something that makes it unique and much more easy to moderate in a throttled way. If it is the opposite of open free discussion, but normally it's not. It only triggers really if there's abuse or somebody new who hasn't quite proved themselves. And yes, you could get past that, but you would have to spend days, weeks, month proving yourself a part of the community and then turn malicious. Like it's such an investment that the type of attacker that we're talking about isn't likely to make.
I would say in Discuss, we're actually in more danger of an attacker hijacking somebody's legit login than we are of them signing up through the normal process. Because it would actually be less.
For the admins and people that do have rights over things, we force like 2-factor auth and things like that in there.
No, I'm just thinking about regular users who've been on for a while.
Yeah,
we'll get that sooner or later.
Discuss is solid. I don't think we need to talk about that too much. Yeah. Is there anything else that we want to talk about as far as Slack retrospective?
So far the plan for sign up, as far as I can tell, is we're going to put this out to the end user group, see if we can get a whole bunch more moderators. If we can get a whole bunch more moderators, then we'll look at opening up signups again. If we can't, then we're going to move to a scheme where we direct users to Discuss, etc. And Slack starts becoming a thing just for contributors. Is that correct?
That is my understanding.
Yeah. The second part is not specifically planned because we are trying to remain hopeful, but that is the backup option if we cannot provide sufficient moderation on here.
I mean, I think even when we solicit this, it's worth mentioning that is the alternative. Because, for example, if some of the people in the end user group really care about having access to Slack, they need to know what's going to happen if they don't step up.
Absolutely.
100%.
Okay, so next action is adding 65 open slots then. I'm doing that this afternoon, right after this. Then,
I mean, you don't have to open them now. I mean, I think we should talk to the end user community first.
Okay.
So I mean, I would hold on that part. But I think our next action is to go to the end user community and the TOC and folks that are outside of our little silo here.
Have we pieced together and determined, like, so if we give somebody moderation powers over Slack, like what they can do and what's the worst that they can do? Because I know dependent on the platform, you know, certain rights could have, if we picked a bad moderator, then we could have some consequences that might even be worse than the thing we're trying to prevent. Do we understand what the scope of those permissions are and what's the worst that could happen? Like,
yes.
How much do we have to trust somebody?
A lot.
George.
The current policy as written states that they have to be a Kubernetes.org member so far.
Yeah, and that's going to be problematic when we invite consumer people into it. I mean, I think there's no perfect solution here other than to, I'm not going to lie to you, y'all. I think the perfect solution here is to have Slack only for contributors and for consumers to be pushed to discuss and Stack Overflow. Like, we're not going to get a perfect solution here. Every solution has a lot of holes, and just like what Josh is saying, like, so +1 to Josh with the fact that, like, we're pretty much going to make a statement by saying that we're okay with 4chan people harassing our people because that's a risk that we're willing to take. And I don't feel comfortable doing that.
Yeah, I don't feel comfortable.
I think we need to explicitly say that that is not acceptable.
Yeah.
That's not a valid outcome here, because that type of targeted harassment can consistently, repeatedly remove trusted, valued members of the community, and that destroys us.
I think the classic way to say this is basically, we need, 65 or whatever the number of people is, of these 60,000 people to step up, kind of sign up, be willing to get vetted a little bit, or we can't have these nice things because of 4chan. Like, I strongly think that even a little chance that they'll be able to get in and harass individual. So I saw some of the things that were posted, and like, no one should ever have to go through that ever again. Like, I would rather everyone flame us for this than have one more person deal with that. I don't know how strongly the rest of you feel, but like, I feel like we kind of put the fate, putting the fate into the users seems kind of like the wrong thing to say there, but it's like, we want to have this nice open thing, but in order to do so, we have to have 24-hour coverage. So we either get the volunteers or we're gonna have to figure something else out.
I agree.
Right, and then, I mean, there's got to be 65 people in there somewhere, right? And then someone's going to have to be a lead. They're going to have to write their own governance. They're going to have to do all these things. But, like, we kind of have to do that. Like, our hands being forced in a way here, right? I mean, does anybody else feel like we...
I think the something else does have a little bit more flexibility. Like, as I think it was Josh mentioned, like, single channel guests is a possibility. Like, that is a thing that we could do of putting non-contributor members that you could only access Kubernetes users.
Right. Mm-hmm.
That is still not the outcome I would prefer, but it is an available option. So we have a little bit more flexibility than all or nothing, but I think the starting place is definitely a call to action to the end user committee of, you got to do something or we will have to do something. So start there.
Yeah. I do think before we make that announcement solicitation is we need to figure out what the qualification list for end users who do volunteer is going to be. Because obviously we don't want to end up with one of the 4chan people as a volunteer. So,
Slack admins, are you cool with me sharing the doc that I wrote to Contribex? Or do you want to wait until we get that a little bit more hammered out?
I'm for just doing everything public in Contribex.
I would just look at my comments first, and then I left a ton of comments, and then go ahead and share it.
I will post that later today. There's a document that I wrote last night. So I encourage everyone later today, when I wake up more, to please comment.
Thank you for writing that doc up, Noah.
So I just have one last kind of comment that I want to tease out here. Other than first saying, like, I agree with everything that's been said. We don't want 4chan to win. We don't want 4chan to feel empowered to harass our users. That is definitely not an acceptable outcome. From the talking to Slack side, is there potentially any more pressure we could put on them, or to engage them in some other way to be like, hey, you guys know your tool better than anyone else. what would you suggest to us? We obviously
Yes.
know there.
Sorry, Christoph. Yes, we're already working on that, and I don't feel comfortable talking about it on the recording.
Okay, but there is more wiggle room there to
Yes,
explore.
but there's no wiggle room on the moderation side. They have said that they will not support open communities. But there are other things going on that I can't discuss on this call.
Gotcha.
Is there any possibility of the CNCF supplying some moderators if we can't get to 60, like in terms of like paid people?
They said that they would supply one. That was they will not supply moderators for their communities. The communities have to supply their own.
Okay.
Good news is only 64 more to go, though.
One down.
Yeah, I also do want to contrast one thing here, which is from my perspective, the only thing we lose by pushing the end users on to discuss is that we lose the sort of easy continuum from end user to maintainer, right? As in everybody's in the same pool, which is nice because it makes it easier to encourage people to move up to the next level. But in contrast to that, I will point out that Slack is a proprietary platform that is primarily designed and sold for a purpose other than the one that we use it for. So from my perspective, the easy continuum is really the only thing we're losing. And so when I look at doing a bunch of complicated automation in order to protect people on Slack, it's not very appealing from that perspective because it feels like we're doing a lot of work, particularly when, having just come from a test infra meeting where we don't have enough people to work on automation for building Kubernetes. It feels like a misallocation of resources.
I want to say I don't think that that's the only thing we're losing. I think some of what we are losing would also be in the I'm not sure how I want to phrase this, in the visibility aspect of Kubernetes as an explicitly inclusive community. And I'm not sure that this necessarily is, a step in the right direction considering the people that are using Slack today. If we're making a decision about whether or not Slack is going to be our primary unit of communication, then that's a different conversation. But since it is today, making that delineation, I think, harms us in terms of, the basic codex of the Kubernetes community that's already been laid down.
Okay. So it sounds like we're going to take this back to the community, see what we can do there in terms of volunteers. And then if we don't get sufficient support from the broader end user community, then we will come back, regroup, and consider other options like pushing non-contributors to discuss.
So one of the things that I thought we had as an action item from last time was talking to either CNCF or anybody else about just getting some resources to just build some moderation tools. Did that conversation ever happen, or was that I misunderstood? Or?
I think the takeaway there was they could fund something, but that becomes sort of like a contract work for hire type of thing. So we'd have to really spec out what is the actual deliverable in an actionable, implementable way.
It's a good option to have in reserve, but probably won't fix anything in the short term either because it'll take time to build and test.
Exactly.
Okay. Does anybody else have any other thoughts, or should we move into the open discussion part of the meeting?
One quick thing. I've been trying to go after like senior people and stuff and tell them, hey, we're getting an influx of new user questions and stuff. I could really use some help answering questions on both Stack Overflow and Discuss. So if you could let your coworkers know that if they've got time in between a coffee or something, just looking at a question would really help us out right now. Because we've got a lot, new users are engaging, but not a lot of people are answering their questions. So
I think this is something that we should also tell the end user community as well. I think that maybe they should just see that like we have been stepping up in a lot of these areas and that we're going to need support in general, not just necessarily with Slack.
Do we have a formal end user SIG? Like I know there is some form of committee, but I don't actually know the details of how that's organized.
No, we don't have one necessarily, I don't think.
Like that's a thing that maybe should exist.
I don't know. I don't necessarily think a SIG because SIG owns code. So what code would they own?
Would that be like the newly created like user group thing?
Yeah, I mean, they could create like a user group or something along those lines, or maybe even like a committee. But I don't know how much CNCF would care for that.
maybe we should ask at the steering.
Yeah.
meeting.
Yeah, for sure.
There should definitely be some form of official structure so that we have people to talk to when stuff like this happens.
Oh, speaking of Slack, I just got an email from them. It's unrelated, by the way, but it does seem important. It says that Slack is making an important change to improve underlying software infrastructure that might require action from you or someone on your network security team. Specifically, if your company has a policy of whitelisting specific URLs, you need to whitelist additional Slack subdomains by March 15th. Please note if these subdomains are not whitelisted by March 15, your users may fail to connect to Slack. Well, they already are failing to connect to Slack anyway.
Do they say the URLs? Are they ad servers? That'd be funny.
No, there's no.
Okay.
Yeah, no, they listed a FAQ, FAQ, and that's it. Yes, I say FAQ. Anyway, yeah, no, that seems pretty important. So we should get that word out as well.
Okay. I'll open it up for general discussion. Does anybody have things that they'd like to address with the broader group? I'll kick it off. Just to wrap back around to a discussion we were having a couple of weeks ago, we made it a goal to meet as a group and have a face-to-face meeting for our SIG. I know that it was proposed that we just we just count our in-person meeting in Barcelona as our face-to-face meeting. Are people here okay with that? The second most supported suggestion was to use Google Next as our face-to-face meeting.
I definitely prefer Barcelona because I'm not going to Google Next.
But when/where is Google Next for those that don't Google?
San Francisco in April, I believe.
April 9th to 11th.
I want to go, but I can't. I'm traveling too much lately.
If Google Next, without giving Google money, I'm happy to show up.
I think that we should definitely just do Barcelona. I don't think there's going to be enough people here. And we still need to do that activity where we scrape all of our owners' files and see who our actual owners are of things as well to see what quorum even looks like.
Okay, so we will just plan on Barcelona for our face-to-face meeting.
Do we know what day that's going to be just for travel planning?
We don't yet. I don't think we've been assigned our deep dive date yet.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry. We'll let you know as soon as we know.
It'll be in the conference, so Dawn. I mean, within that conference window.
Okay, so it won't be before or after. It'll be during the conference.
Yeah,
okay, perfect. That's all I needed to know. Thanks.
Does anybody have anything else that they needed to talk about?
Paris is awesome, and thank you for Jonas and stepping up and helping to run the Session in Barcelona.
Yes, mad props to both of those humans, but especially Paris. It's just
Oh my
awesome,
gosh,
and she
get
works
outta
her butt off and like
Get out of here.
makes our community the awesome community that it is. So
We'll buy you lots of
mad,
paella.
mad love for Paris.
Yes.
Out of here. Y'all are too nice to me.
It's like, we love you. Have some paella. It'll be wonderful.
It's gonna be great.
Actually, quick question. Paris, did you reach out internally regarding the Google Group stuff? Did you get any answer on that?
I have not gotten an answer, but I did reach out. I actually have I'm actually seeing a couple folks this afternoon that have better connections there than I do, so I'm hoping to get some responses. Do you want to fill everybody in with what we talked about the Google Group stuff? Give some context, because it's another hit on moderation of proprietary tools.
So the TLDR of it in May, there's a bunch of changes happening to Google Groups, and apparently one of the lesser used options was the new user moderation queue. And if you have that enabled, it will flip over moderation for the entire Google group. So every post has to be moderated instead of just the new user posts. It is an on or off thing. That's currently what it sounds like is going to happen.
And that's exactly how we moderate, y'all. So that very unused feature for everybody else is extremely used here in open source land. So I am trying to see from other Googlers here, like, is there another strategy for moderation? Like, what's the deal? Should we be also looking at other strategies for our mailing lists? So I feel like our entire communication structure architecture this year is going to be hit. So brace yourselves, winter is coming for productivity tools.
Maybe if we make all the developers use Discuss, they'll answer questions too.
I know. I feel like
so I don't think you were here when we did this migration, but like we purposely did the users and not the developers because I'm very scared of moving their cheese.
I did the migration of the chef lists, including the chef developer list.
Yes.
It went poorly.
Yeah.
One of the main contributors still refuses to use the developer list.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've added some action items to the bottom of the Slack attack retro because we have a few follow-ups that we said that we would do. And I want to make sure that somebody's assigned to actually doing them. So if you are the person who was planning on doing those, please put your name down in that grid. Right now I only have 4 action items because there's several potential action items, but it starts with this one. So preparing to request any user committee to ask for additional moderators. Somebody needs to write that
one.
Or needs to lead drafting that. Okay.
I'll draft it, send it around for comments and take it to the committee.
Okay. Someone needs to decide which integrations to re-enable and when.
If somebody else could take that one, that would be awesome.
Can we just call that as like, we'll delay that one, but maybe collect requests for it and make decisions later?
Yeah, that could be good.
I'd still like to have somebody assigned to being responsible for that particular task because otherwise we're just going to lose track of it.
Yeah, I will take the task, but just data gathering for now. Make a place for people to request things, and we can see what gets requested.
Yep. Who is in contact with Golang and Ruby about what they're doing for dealing with Slack admin?
I am. We have a back channel now.
Yeah, and I was going to say Noah and I.
Okay. And then the final thing is develop and document procedure for assigning an incident commander in the event of another moderation event.
George, can you include that in your PR stuff? That could probably get added nicely into there.
Sure, on it. So I am adding an escalation procedure, an incident thinger.
Okay.
I'll call it incident thinger. Got it. Okay.
Yeah. And, okay, those are the only concrete follow-ups that I actually have from our discussion. Everything else kind of depends on the recruit additional moderators. Yeah, was there one I missed?
Nuts. I just forgot. We're kind of talking in the context of Kubernetes users too, but there's also a lot of projects inside inside the Slack, like open source projects and stuff. So it's not just a pile of end users. It's like Helm people and the Capitan guy and
yeah. So actually, in terms of following up with end users, I would say Helm would definitely be a big group to follow up with because
Yeah.
After all, after Kubernetes users, their channel is the most populous.
Yeah, I'm just saying we have a ton of those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right.
That's why I was thinking maybe there needs to be something like a SIG to organize all those people, because I kind of need them all in one place every now and then.
Good catch, George.
Yep. Okay, and I will have myself down for meta to make sure that that we get a status update on those things, plus any additional follow-up things. So. Okay, that's it for action items.
Great. Thank you, Josh. Is there anything else that people would like to discuss in the open discussion portion? Nope. Okay. I'll give you 8 minutes back in your day then. Have a wonderful Wednesday.
Later, all.
Everyone.